Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for a new segment called Bauer's Crystal Ball, which I'll do maybe once every year or two, where I'm going to make some bold predictions about the future of our hobby, our board game hobby, but also read off some predictions from some people in the comments. So, how this worked is I ran a poll and I asked people, what do you think the future of tabletop games looks like? I put down some of my predictions. So we're going to talk about mine. We're going to talk about the people's. So let's get going. So the first one I have is the Dice tutorial app will grow in popularity massively, or a similar service will. When done properly, they are amazing. Imagine an app with hundreds of game tutorials at your fingertips. Volume is the key, in my opinion. And if you have not checked out the Dice tutorial app, it is really nice. It's a very functional, well-done tutorial app that I can't recommend enough. It just needs more game. It needs more content. But if a big company like Asmodee or even CMON or someone like really leaned into this and worked on their back catalog, their new catalog, and did this, I think it could be huge. You know, how popular are how to play videos right now? Imagine if that was a tutorial app that you could download and have with you, and you could it's just spectacular. So, that's a bold prediction. Next, friendly local game stores will not make a comeback. The price differential from Amazon to buying in stores is just too much to compete against. Gaming experience stores, cafe bars, weed bars, etc. will continue to grow, however, as it's obvious our hobby is growing. And why I say that is, pre-pandemic, our hobby was growing. Gradually, progressively, it was just growing. But during the pandemic, I'm going to make a speculative guess, and I think most game companies would back me up on their game sales right now. Our hobby is growing big, because with all these people cooped up inside, looking for more things to do, having more disposable income, is you gotta realize, I'm not buying food at a restaurant now, so maybe I splunk down more on board games, or I start buying some board games. I just think that the standard model we have now at the friendly local gaming store is it's nearly impossible to do, because you can go to Amazon and you can save $15 to $20 on a lot of games right now, and that's just really hard to overcome when you realize that more than half of the country is living paycheck to paycheck. So, number 3, our hobby will continue to keep growing as people realize how bad our obsession with screen time really is, and of course, because our games are flipping amazing. And that's just one of those things. As a parent, I see my kids on a lot of screen time, and like, oh my gosh, I want you doing less screen time, and so we find ourselves playing more board games, and I'm sure that's happening for a lot of people, you know. It's just screen times. It's bad. There's a reason why these people who run Facebook and you know, I was going to say the MySpace, Jesus, I just dropped MySpace on you, who have these big tech companies, they pretty much say as soon as their kids get home, it's like no phone, like no screen time, none of that. They know what's up. All right, so 4, the gender gap in our hobby will continue to shrink due to a variety of different reasons. I see this trend in my metrics, and I believe it will continue to grow. A few shout-outs that I think are helping push the movement forward, including Elizabeth Hargrave's massive success with Wingspan. I still have not played Wingspan. I need to play Wingspan. But the fact that she is a well-known designer, and when you really think about it, there's not that many well-known designers. Like, maybe, like, 10, 20, 30, 50, somewhere in that ballpark. You know, and that she's in there, you know, that really speaks a lot, because, you know, let's look at it like from this perspective. Before Elizabeth Hargrave, if you were naming off game designers, I don't think many people could name many female designers. And so just seeing her have that breakout success is awesome. I think she won the Spiel des Jahres, and it's just, I continue to see that trend. And also in my metrics, I see that my numbers are going up. Now, maybe that's just me personally, but I think more female content creators, because there's currently a good deal of them. A lot of them are on TikTok. I really love a lot of the TikTok content going out right now. You should be checking. If you're not on TikTok for board games, it might be worth checking out. There's some really quality content, some good humorous content as well. But I see that trend continuing to grow, and I think that having them in more mass market style places like Target and Walmart. I mean, you go walk down that Target shelf right now, and it's crazy. Like, you throw a rock and you're going to be picking a hobby board game, and that's awesome. And so I just think that gender gap is going to slowly go up, and I love seeing that. So those are my 4 predictions. Let me know what you think about in the comments below. But also let me know what you think about these fine people who took the time to comment on my polls. And if you're not checking on my polls, I put up polls all the time. I try and make them related to Kickstarter, board games, all sorts of various different stuff. Click on those polls. Check them out for me because that really tickles my YouTube algorithm real well. So, and there was another prediction, actually, and it got cut off, and I don't remember what it was. It was red text. So apparently the red text means that you can't type so much in there. So the 5th prediction is gone into history. All right. So I think the amount of heavy co-op games with solo options will rise, seeing how successful Spirit Island was, says Aman. And I agree. I absolutely agree, because at the end of the day, making any game cooperative just generally makes it an easier, more accessible game to get into. Because you're all on a team. It's all, most of the time, it's all just public knowledge. You can show everything. You can talk about everything. You can do open-handed. You can do it. You say, oh, actually, you might want to consider doing this because that's going to help. You know, you can really help people learn the game. Whereas most of the time in a heavy Euro game, like when you're teaching someone, it's like, you probably all had that moment where it's like, I feel like I should remind you that in this game, X, Y, and Z is going to be a big deal. And by saying that, it's like, oh, I just tipped my hand that I'm going to X, Y, and Z so hard right now. And I agree. I kind of getting off the tangent here, but I agree. I think heavy cooperative games are going to get more popular because I look at Orleans, which, oh my gosh, it's so good. When they're done well, it's so delightful to sit down and play a cooperative game and just still have it be, you know, meaty and heavy and chunky and thinky. And I agree. I love that trend, and I want to see that trend continue to grow, and I think it will, especially also with the solo option as well. More and more people pertaining to the pandemic having to game solo or choosing to game solo. I agree. I agree with that one completely, Aman. Solo games will become even more popular, says Cheney. I find it fascinating that when I was a kid, video games were played solo and board games were for playing with groups. And now multiplayer video games are the most popular, and half of the top 50 on BGG can be played solo. Yeah, video games were playing solo. You know, I remember I had a Sega Genesis, and most of the time that was just me playing it. That was what I would do to entertain my time. Whereas, that's an interesting one. Okay, yeah, I agree. Solo games, the popularity is only going to increase. Because while I could see the alternate opinion being like, oh, but now that the pandemic's slowly winding down, you can now go out and play with people. But still, it's just, sometimes if it's a really well-designed game, just the simplicity, you know, not having to invite people over, not having to do the shower, you can leave it set up. I agree. Solo games, so this is the same as Aman said, I agree. Solo games are going to continue to grow, especially as more and more people design solo-only games, because those ones really, I think, are some of the best. I think the crowdfunding bubble will eventually burst. People will get sick of spending hundreds of dollars to go all in on game after game. Josh Roberts, dropping the hammer. I don't know. I don't know. I have to give you a concrete answer because I'm not gonna waffle on one of these. So I'm gonna think about it a little bit. We're gonna come back to that one. I really need to put some thought into that one because we'll get back into it. I think it's completely arbitrary to separate screen time with other activities such as reading books or playing board games. But I think that being constantly distracted by devices is bad for thinking and time management. It's also good to be bored sometimes because that's how you can think things over and get new ideas. I think it's completely arbitrary to separate screen time with other activities. I think that was connecting to our obsession with screen time. Okay, that's fair. I just think that I look at it from a parental perspective, and as a parent, I see, imagine you have teenagers, and it's just like, I want to spend time with you, and I want you off that screen, I want you off your phone, and I see that being kind of a natural path there. And I imagine, I would love to know just how many more families are playing board games, because those numbers are going to be really healthy for our hobby. Because if people are picking up those target games now and they're playing at their house, 2, 3, 4 times because they're cooped up, and then those kids grow up and they become gamers, and maybe it's like, oh yeah, King of Tokyo, that was Settlers of Catan, like that was that, like, and it's just, I feel like seeds are being planted, and I think screen time plays a role into it. I think a lot of people are just like, I don't know. All right, Tabletop Simulator or an online equivalent will become supported more with paid DLC, full games when companies realize there's money to be made from people who can't afford to splash 300 quid on an enormous box or store the bleeder. Tabletop Wolf. Yeah, I agree. I should be doing this to all of them because it's they tickle those YouTube algorithms. But absolutely, I 100% agree, and I had not thought about it like that. Tabletop Simulator is this totally free Wild Wild West, and whenever there are totally free Wild Wild West where money can be made, there will be a company who will say, "Ooh, hot diggity damn, we can make some money right here." And yeah, I see that. I see that. And I'm imagining the ecosystem. And it's not that hard to imagine, you know. There's a Kickstarter thing where it's like, you can get the game now, or you can, for $5, get it on Tabletop Simulator, and you'll have it just immediately after the campaign's over, or something like that. Especially for people all around the world. You know, because that's one of the biggest things. The VATs and the shipping outside of the United States of America is just massive, and that's why more than half the people who shop on Kickstarter from the United States of America, because we don't get jacked on shipping every other project. So yeah, I think I 100% agree, and it makes me sad because I don't even use Tabletop Simulator that much, but I see this. Paid DLC, full games, yeah. I mean, you couldn't see them doing like a promo or like, oh, we got an expansion for this game now, $10, $5. Like, people pay that in a heartbeat. It's just right now your mindset is, oh, it's free. It's free. Why would I possibly pay for it? But as soon as that free is gone, it's like, oh, well, it's just $15 for Orleans. Yeah, why wouldn't I? Oh my god, Tabletop Wolf. I wish I could thumb that up twice. The number of games with board games apps are going to increase. Do I particularly agree with this? Only if they can keep up. 2. The number of legacy games are going to increase because the people liking them, and it's actually better for the company making it if you might actually buy more than one copy. Okay, so let's do these one by one. The number of games with board game apps are going to increase. Do I particularly agree with this? Only if they can keep up. I agree completely, and there's so much bookkeeping involved in board games and tabletop games that if you can have an app that will take care of it. Like, I look at a game like, say, Chronicles of Crime, and imagine if Chronicles of Crime didn't use QR codes. Like, it would have to have a massive book where you'd have to go in every single time and check this corresponding to this. And it's doable. It's something that you absolutely could do. But just having an app like that just makes it so much more convenient. I think of the adventure games from Cosmos right now, which are they're hit or miss. But they're still a marvel to see what can be done with app. And I agree. I think the number of app integrated games is only going to increase. I don't think it will ever dominate until one big company really leans into it. Like, I see Cosmos kind of doing that right now. Like, they are just doing tons and tons of stuff with the app. And if you could have all that stuff. So imagine if you did that for the last 10 years and then you just had this huge back catalog of everything. It would just... I agree. I agree with this one. The number of legacy games are going to increase between the people liking them, and it's actually better for the company making it if you actually want to buy more than one copy. I also agree with this because at the end of the day, there's not really that many legacy games, like true legacy games. And I think there was a big rush on them, but I do believe that we're going to see more come out because it is such a cool concept, and they do take so long to design, I imagine, because there's just a lot of extra moving parts and pieces in there. But yes, I think they're going to increase. I don't think it will be drastic, but yeah, I think, you know what? I think it'll just be. I think it's going to be like this. I don't think it's going to be like that. All right, and my favorite one: bigger, grander games. Things we have never seen in games before between mechanics, how the games works and interacts. And I don't mean like, oh, this company made one change. No, I mean something we couldn't even have imagined. Let me give an example. There is, or will be, not sure, a board game that works like a freaking pop-up book. Like, what? Great, amazing things are coming to board games, and I'm so happy to be a part of the community. I agree with this. Yeah, I mean, I think innovation, and we see it quite frequently. Just new things popping into our hobby. You know, 10 years ago, like card sleeves, that like the transparent cards, and, you know, legacy games. App integration, mint tin games. Like, these are all, I don't know if they're reinventing the wheel, but I agree. There will be newer mechanics, newer things. And here's the bottom reason. Actually, you know why? I want to support this with something that I really do think will help this. And that is 3D printing becoming much more of a prevalent and cheap thing to do. It's going to allow people to tinker more, to figure out more. And I could just see as 3D printing becomes cheaper to the point that it's done in factories, and plastic now becomes, because plastic used to be in a lot of games, and then plastic kind of went away because it was so expensive. But if they could find a way to do 3D printing plastic cheap, I agree, because it really does open up a whole world of possibilities with different components and things you could do. And all right, board games with VR, maybe. And then they have Catan and Zero on Quest 2 already. I think it would be really cool to implement more board games into the VR space. This one I also love to see, and this one I also agree with. Yeah, because at the end of the day, if board games are going to get bigger, it just stands to reason that people are going to be more likely to do board games in VR. I mean, the Catan. I have a crummy VR. I'd love to get a nice one, but they're super expensive. But I have a Catan one, and it's amazing. It's like I'm sitting at the table playing Settlers of Catan. It's crazy. Like and just more stuff like that. Like imagine just like a tabletop simulator where it's just in VR. It's just like I'm at the table. Like that's really cool. Yeah, I agree. I think there will be more board games in VR, but once again, I don't think it will be like this. I think it will be just a slow, gradual thing as board games get more popular. But now, the big one here. Josh Roberts. And by the way, thank you everyone for the comments. I think the crowdfunding bubble will eventually burst. People will get sick of spending hundreds of dollars to go all in on game after game. And I am going to disagree because the people who are supporting this bubble have not unlimited income, obviously, but lots of extra income. You know, we're in a hobby that is all about having disposable income. Now, granted, things like Target and Walmart games and all that sorts of stuff, they are bringing it more to the mass market, which I love seeing. But at the end of the day, this is still a very niche hobby where you generally have to have a good deal of money to really have a collection. You know, you can play tons of games. You can go to the library, you can rent games, you can go to game stores and all that sorts of stuff like that. So I don't think it will. I'm taking a hard stance on this one because honestly, I could just as easily defend the other side. And it's so easy. Like, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. And I mention it all the time in my Kickstarter critiques. The prices just keep getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And it's just, when do we say enough is enough? Like, when do we finally say, you know what, $500, that's just ridiculous. But for now, you know, $400, look at all the minis. But $500, get the hell out. Like, what number is that? I don't know. But I don't think it bursts. I think we get to that number. I think we see companies get slapped in the face when they try and go above whatever that magical number that we just all, as a Kickstarter society, deem as too much. And then they adjust accordingly and say, okay, we're going to try and tone this down a little bit. We're going to scale it down a little bit. And then I think people start competing with each other, and then the price might go down slightly. But I don't think it'll be like a bubble where it'll burst and it's just going to be over. Because I think when you look at other, like, medias that have, like, burst, like, let's say comics, for instance. Comics are still pretty cheap at the end of the day. You know, comics are still easy to store at the end of the day, and they still burst, actually. You know what? I'm still going to go with no. I don't think it will burst. But I could definitely see if it did, I would not be terribly surprised by it because the other thing is when you buy these $300 to $400, you know, monstrosities of games, which might be spectacular games, that's a ton of space that gets taken up. And so it's really weird because I see people all the time saying, you know what, I'm done on Kickstarter, I'm sick, you know, I've backed anything in months and months and months, but yet still these projects just keep going. I don't know. Let me know. I think this is definitely the one that I would be the least comfortable with my prediction on. I don't think it'll burst. I think we'll collectively just say, $500, $512 is the cutoff, and then people will like kind of level off of that. I think right now people are just exploring how high they can go, how much money they can make off one game. Either way, it's an interesting one. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoy what I'm doing, please be sure to click on the subscribe button down below. Have a great day. I hope you have a great one. I just said that. Why would I say it twice? Because I want you to have a great, great day.